Hi, Michael. This is Christina from The Upcoming. It's so lovely to speak with you today.
Hi, nice to
To,
meet you.
to start things off, can you tell us what your new show, Chad Powers, is about and what audiences can expect going in?
Yeah, it's about a guy who plays college football over here in the States, and he ruins his career. He makes a terrible mistake and can't play anymore and is sort of uh, canceled. Nobody likes him anymore, and he decides the only way that he'll be able to play the sport he loves again is by disguising himself as a new person, and he does that. His dad works in Hollywood, makeup and special effects, so he steals his dad's makeup and he recreates himself as this idiot, Chad Powers, and walks on as the quarterback of a struggling football team and makes the team and then has to figure out how to keep up the lie, over the course of the season.
And what sparked the idea for this show?
Well, I'm a big college football fan, and Glenn Powell, the star, and I had wanted to work together for a while, and it was based on a sketch that Eli Manning, who's a famous uh, professional football player over here, a sketch that he did about this guy, Chad Powers. And Glenn and I saw the sketch and we thought, wow, man, that might be a cool way into a show about this world. And maybe even more than that, even for people who don't know anything about American football or even care about sports at all, like all great sports stories, it was really a cool way to investigate identity and like why people chase these competitive endeavors and sort of who you are after you can't play anymore and what it's like to not be able to let go. So we found some fun dramatic depth for it or to it, and yeah, that I guess that's why we made it.
What were you the most concerned with getting right about college football?
Well, I'm a big fan myself, and I know how savage these fans can be. So I was concerned about everything. I myself, if the show sounded fake, looked fake, I would be the first one saying this thing stinks. So, I was really, it was important to me that we got it all right, that the plays, and the players themselves, we had guys who had actually played in college football and in the league. They were our football extras, and when we shot football, we tried to shoot it really cinematically and make it look good. And we partnered with real teams. So our fictional school, the South Georgia Catfish, is playing real teams like the University of Georgia and Ole Miss. And I guess that was the other thing with our fictional school. Wanted to make them feel like a school that's got 100 years of history, and that people who've gone to these big schools with big football programs, it'll sort of remind them of where they went.
And in your opinion, what makes American football so cinematic?
At least for a long time, it was people weren't getting paid to play to play it. It was all about the promise of what could come after, and so it was maybe a little more for love of the game. Now these guys, especially as they're succeeding more and more, they're getting played or they're getting paid. But I do think that there's just so much tradition, and it's so regional. It's so tied specifically to really small towns. It's not like the Dallas Cowboys, which they're connected to a big city and kind of represent all of Texas. These college football teams, they exist in these very small college towns, and so it's a very special thing that people care a lot about and really passionate for. So,
And can you tell us a bit more about the training camps that the cast had to go through?
well, Glenn worked so hard. He worked with Patrick Mahomes, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL now. He worked with his coach in the off season, training and just getting his throwing mechanics right. Glenn played football in high school. He's a great athlete, but he had to look like an elite top tier, college quarterback. The other thing is we had Peyton Manning and Eli Manning sort of overseeing things. Those guys are legends. So every time Glenn would have a practice session, that tape was getting sent to those guys and they were marking it up. So Glenn was out there long before we started shooting, working on the weekends with these guys, working on his throwing mechanics and everything. And he really he put in the work and it shows. That's him in the helmet in the show. And that's really him out there and he looks awesome.
For a potential second season, what storylines would you be most interested in exploring?
Well, it's tough to say without spoiling the what happens in season one. I mean, the show is inspired by great sports stories like Bull Durham or Major League. Also got a lot of that kind of Mrs. Doubtfire Tootsie energy to it. But because at the end of the day, it's a guy covering up a lie. We talked about Breaking Bad a lot, or Barry. There's a kind of this serialized element of that. That's the engine at the center of the show of can this guy keep up the lie? So it's tough to talk about season two without spoiling season one, but I think that like any good story about somebody covering up a lie, as the story goes on, it's just going to get tougher and tougher, and I guess that's where this one would go.